Time to put up the lights that go on the garage. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights that go up there. So the lights we got have a photocell on them, and what that does is it turns these lights on and off automatically with the rising and setting of the sun. So every one of them has that, and the thing, I definitely want that, but I don't want each light to individually turn on and off with its own photocell. So what I'm going to do, it's going to be pretty simple. I'll show you how to do it. I want to make sure all the lights just run off of one photocell, so they all come on and off at the same time. If you wire them the way they come, you'll have lights turning on and off. I mean, it could only be, you know, a few seconds apart, 30 seconds apart, depending on if it's shaded or the sun hits one before the other. But still, even though nobody's probably going to see that, that bothers me. So I'm going to wire these up so they all run off of one photocell, so they all come on and off together. I know that we marked this light. This is the switch leg, so this is the power wire that comes from the switch. So I know that has to go to the first photocell. So the first thing is to figure out where your switch leg is, and that's going to go to a photocell and then to the light, and then from that light it's going to go to all the rest of the lights, and I'm going to bypass the photocell on those. So I'll show you how to do that once we get going here. I know I say this every time I talk about electric, but you have to verify that there's no power. Obviously I know that this breaker is off, but I still like to test the wires with a multimeter. That just guarantees that there's no power there. So there's the photocell right there, and that's what's going to turn the light on and off with the sun going down and coming up, and you can see each one has one. So this is going to be my first light, so I want the photocell on this one to work. So this one I can leave wired up just the way it is. So my power will come in here, it goes into the photocell, and then the photocell will switch based on whether the sun's coming up or going down, and then send a signal coming out here to the actual light. So what we need to do is I need to hook my switch leg to this, and then my wires leaving the first light and going to the next one needs to be tied in with these two right here. That way when the signal comes out of the photocell, it'll send it to all the other lights, turning the power on and off. So we'll take this tape off, all the neutrals can just get hooked together, and then the wire going over to the next lights will get hooked into here. And then all the rest of them, what we're going to do is we're just going to cut, basically remove this photocell. So we'll just hook our power and our neutral wire up to these two going into the light, so we can just cut the rest of that off. So these will be the wires that we hook to right here, and then basically these will just be abandoned. Photocell is disconnected on all these. These are just taped off, kept to the side. I'll leave it there, one, so they all look the same, but two, if I ever wanted to use that again, I could always wire it back in, which I probably never will, but it's there if I want to. Then my power wires will get hooked up just, you know, just like normal, a ground, neutral, and a hot. So these four are all wired like that. And then this is the light the switch leg comes into. So my power switch leg will hook up here, neutral to neutral, ground to ground, and then this will get hooked to the outgoing power wire that goes to all the other lights. So then this photocell will control all of the lights, and it'll switch on and off with just this one instead. So the next step is to mount the mounting bracket for the light, and had my wife picked a different light, this wouldn't have been an issue, but this is just the way it goes. We had to do a little modification. There's a X bracket basically with a grounding screw and then a level adjustment. And what I ended up having to do is, because I had the square boxes instead of the octagon boxes, is I had to trim the mounting bolts for the light. And I'll show you that here just in a second. It ended up being pretty easy, but the reason being is those bolts didn't have a place to go back into a box, so I had to cut them to length so I could get that light sucked up tight enough to hold it. So you can see the red arrow is pointing to the bolts that you mount the actual light to, and how that's supposed to work is those are threaded into that bracket so you can adjust them to the proper length. My problem is you can see that the head of the screw is against the metal, so I had to measure and cut those to length so that I could get my light sucked up tight to the wall. Had I used, like I said, had I used the octagon box, they would have been able to go back into the box and be adjusted, but I'm sure somebody else will encounter this, but that's how I did it. I just used a Dremel to cut them to length, and then I could easily suck my light up tight against the steel. All right, we got all these trimmed off. You know, if I'd have used round boxes here, I wouldn't have had to trim these, but hindsight's always 20/20. It wasn't that big a deal. Took me a couple minutes. Got all these bolts trimmed, so now we can go ahead and fasten them all up there. Now that the brackets are up, it's literally just holding the light up there, hooking your grounds together. Make sure you ground that bracket. It's got a grounding screw on it. Hooking your neutrals together, and then hooking your hot wires together. And then you can slide that light over those two bolts and put the trim nuts on and suck it up tight. They make LED lights that look like incandescents, and they're pretty sweet. They're clear and they look awesome. I'll get one out here. So this is actually an LED light, and so it looks pretty cool. So we're gonna go ahead and get these all in, and then hopefully we can get all these turned on tonight. It is nasty out. Raining, kind of sleeting. So much for going from like 70-degree weather and staying there. We're back to nasty, cold. Last one. So I was having trouble with these lights just turning on and off. That photocell was so sensitive. I think it's just the light was shining off this metal. So I took a 1/2 inch or a piece of 1/2 inch PEX, and about, I don't know, 1.5 inches long, and I painted it black, and I fitted it over that photocell, and that blocked enough of the light that now it just turns on and stays on. And we'll try that for a couple nights, but I think that's probably going to solve the problem. But some of these photocells are so sensitive. This is not an adjustable one, so luckily I was able to figure out a way to fix it, and I think it's going to work pretty good. Alright, so the only thing I have left to do, and I got to wait till it warms up, is I'll put some silicone around the top and down the sides, and then I'll leave this bottom open, and there's actually a little hole there for any moisture to drain. Hopefully this video was enjoyable to you. It's a pretty easy project, DIY friendly project I think anybody could do. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.